Psychology over the last 60 years has mostly been about what's wrong with you, and then let's med you up or whatever. Okay, I shouldn't say med you up, but let's fix you. What he was teaching us was about right thinking, and back then it was kind of known as pop psychology. It's about thinking, to get more performance out of us, not only on the football field, but also in school and in life.
Well, welcome to your official podcast of AST, Advanced Sports Technology. I'm your host, Eduardo Sicilia, and today we have one of the co-founders, Jim Madrid, to talk to us a little bit about how everything was created and what AST is all about. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, thanks, Eddie. This is awesome. This is our first one officially, okay? Let's make this one one of the best, because there's going to be a lot of great guests that we're going to bring on. Eddie's going to take us through this all the time. I love this kid. He is, come on, gangbusters with us, and technology-wise, podcasts, all that. He's the man. So Eddie, thank you very much. And he's coming to us live out of Cancun, Mexico.
No, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm really excited for everything that's about to come. Like you mentioned, a lot of other guests are coming to the show, talking about sports, talking about the mental side of the game, which is obviously crucial for us. And most importantly, before we keep on moving, I would like to plug our social media. We have the Instagram running now. We have the Facebook running. I'm going to leave the links down below in the description, and it should be popping up over here or down here. So Jim, let's jump right into it.
Cool.
Give us a little bit about, the background of where you come from and how you started AST.
So this is only going to be, an hour long, Eddie, so we don't have time for all that. So I'll try and do the shortened version if I can, okay? You know me, I can talk. So let's see. Grew up in Seattle, Washington, have wonderful parents that really kind of set the tone and the mindset that anything is possible for me and my siblings. My father was hardworking. He was a truck driver, and he was also a musician. He was a drummer. And then my mother was a shoe salesperson for Nordstrom. And to watch the work ethic of those two was incredible. I have an older sister, Linda, who basically, while my parents were always gone, kind of was the eldest of our family. There was 5 of us, and she really took good care of us. She was awesome too. Her attitude reflected my parents' attitude that anything is possible. And she's been an inspiration to me my entire life, as well as my older brother, David. He's the ultimate salesperson. He has guided me, has helped me out of tough spots. Both of them have. Those 4 really impacted my life. I have 2 younger sisters, but those 4 really impacted my life. And then I show up at high school, and I've got this football coach and PE instructor, and I'm a soccer player, and there's no soccer program there. And so he saw that I could strike a ball during PE, playing soccer. So he made me the place kicker on the football team and punter. And he started giving us this information. It was about psychology over the last 60 years has mostly been about what's wrong with you. Okay. Then let's diagnose what's wrong with you, and then let's med you up or whatever. Okay. I shouldn't say med you up, but let's, fix you because there's something wrong with you. Lou Tice was my coach, high school coach, teacher, went on to be my boss, my mentor, just an incredible human being. And what he was teaching us was about right thinking. And back then it was kind of known as pop psychology kind of thing, new age thinking. It's about thinking, to get more performance out of us, not only on the football field, but also in school and in life. And I graduated, and we're celebrating our 50th high school reunion this year. I can't believe it. But he started a company called the Pacific Institute. I ended up going to work there later on in years. And I just immersed myself into now known as cognitive psychology and positive psychology. And then a few years later, it was the science of, the study of neuroscience, how the brain is really connected to performance. And so I've kind of immersed myself in what started out as kind of a personal interest has become a professional passion. And, I start working with, organizations back in the day, over 30 years ago. And inevitably, a parent would come up and say, hey, do you do this for kids? Well, I've raised 5. And my older boys, Jamie and Jeremy, now 45, they were really good athletes. And so we just kind of, used it on them and watching them. And then I start coaching and start using it on those teams. And I had one team where, I didn't even know any of the kids. And we picked probably the worst of all of them, athletic wise, skills and abilities. And we ended up winning the conference. So, it was kind of like change that belief and you change the performance. In 2005, we scaled down our adult curriculum, the 10 principles of mental fitness, down to what we call the 7 fundamentals of mental fitness, which is kind of our basic course, our introductory course. And from there, it's just kind of taken off in youth sports. Eddie, I work with, professional athletes in the NBA, NFL, MLB, MLS, Major League Soccer. And through that, every one of those pro athletes, those elite athletes, to the level that they've achieved, and they said, man, I wish I would have had this when I was younger. And it isn't that we've taken cognitive psychology and clinical psychology and use it on them, is that I guess one of the gifts that I have and a lot of my staff that we have is being able to translate the clinical into the practical. Therefore, it's easy to understand and then makes it easy to implement. And we've seen the improvement. So that's how advanced sports technology, AST, has come about. And over the last 3-4 years, in putting over probably close to 100,000 kids through our program, now we're really getting ready to launch some new technology and really bring on to the marketplace some pretty exciting performance programs. And again, not just to enhance the performance on the field of play, but also in school and in life. So that's where kind of a short little version of it. When we want to have a long discussion, we can do that later.
So that's how AST was created, where it's standing right now. Obviously, you gave us a little bit brief of an explanation of the future, but why do you think this side of the game or this part of sports is so underrated?
It's because I think that we've got coaches that we've always done it that way, and they've taught the technical, the tactical, and the physical part. And the mental part is still, to some coaches, an intangible to them. It's, how do you measure that? Where's the statistics for that? You know what I mean? So, there's not a stat chart in basketball and soccer for the mental,
Right.
There isn't a stat for it. So, in a lot of those old school coaches, they're just locked into that. It is underrated, yet it's really coming about. It really is coming about, and then the pandemic kind of threw us into even more important the mental side of it is right now. I mean, these kids are suffering from emotional neglect and isolationism, and they are psychologically needy right now. And you're seeing right now in the news all these different leagues, from NFL to the NBA, and all of them, the major professional sports, are bringing in mental health experts. A lot of youth sports are bringing into associations mental health experts. And I think it's great. And it's truly needed, especially after this pandemic thing. But I've kind of taken the stance over the years about preventing mental health. And I think that's something we need to talk about. And it's not being talked about. We're dealing with the aftermath of it, which is super important. But we also need to deal with, it's like brushing your teeth. It prevents, dental problems in the future. And I think we need to do more of this. In 2005, Eddie, when we schooled down our curriculum, our adult curriculum, the 10 principles of mental fitness down to the 7 fundamentals, from that age 13 on up, and we took it to the schools. We thought, man, we had all these clients always from our team, when they were facilitating the curriculum and programs, we'd always have these parents come up and say, do you do this for kids? And we thought, yeah, so we put it together. We thought, man, we'll take it to the schools. They're going to love teaching kids self-esteem, confidence, how to set goals, reach for those goals, stretch a little bit harder, comfort zones, so on. And here's what we got. We got, we just don't know where we'd have time to fit this in because there was no money in it for them. Because again, that's where it's really underrated, is in our educational system. So through the window of sports, we're able to get this education in, and man, and Eddie, you've seen the results of it. You've seen the eyes just open up wide when we do start teaching this education. And again, it's not motivation; it's education.
Right.
So, if they take it, they can motivate themselves. The old adage that I'm going to motivate you. No, I'm not a motivational speaker. We're educational. And if we can give them this education and they can put this to use, then they can motivate themselves. And it isn't just for a temporal time. It's, we still get clients coming from us, students coming back to us. I've got a young man, Brad Evans, who played for the Seattle Sounders, played for the U.S. men's national team, soccer team. He's now retired, living up in Seattle. And I got hold of him in 2000. And to this day, when I talk to Brad, he will continue to say how much he still uses the curriculum, and he's not even playing sports anymore. So we get that a lot. So underrated, you're right. But let's talk about preventing these mental health problems. Instead of a mental health center, why aren't we creating the Center for High Performance Students?
I am.
I'd send my kids to that. Go ahead, Eddie. What?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because obviously we've talked about how you guys are covering from fifth graders to MLS players, NFL players, NBA players, but we're talking about athletes. What about those who are not athletes? Does this work for them too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My daughter, and she played soccer, she played volleyball, through high school, but her major interest was theater, acting. And, you take the same thing there. I mean, she got this curriculum the day she was born, even before, I might add, but that's a whole different subject. But, yeah, I mean, if you're in a play and you're on stage and somebody makes a mistake, they recover real fast too. And the debate club, whatever it may be, it's for life. And that's why we just say that through the window of sports, we can get it in there. We brought us into schools. You can put it into a different class, but it's for everybody. There's no square box that somebody has to fit into to go through our programs. It just happens that we can get to a lot more, and like you just said earlier, that it's underrated, and and in the schools, they're just not giving this stuff to them. I mean, you have teachers, saying your goal this year in this class should be to get this. Your goal should be that. Okay, great. I remember when I was a single father with my older boys, Jamie and Jeremy, and they were in 6th grade, and their grades weren't up to par. And I yelled at them and I said, you guys got to study harder. And Jeremy came back around a little later and said to me, Dad, can you teach me how to study? And it's like, wow, that's what we need to, it's the same concept now is that we've got to teach them these mental skills, these life skills that are going to impact their life positively for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, still, it's tough to get into some of these schools. There's 44 million kids playing sports in the United States today. So every high school has a theater program. Every high school has these different clubs. Every high school, one of the high schools I've been working with is Santa Margarita High School in Southern California. Out of this came, and a couple other things came, other factors came into it in creating a mental wellness center. But even at that, they were remodeling the counseling office, and they were going to call it the Mental Wellness Center. Okay, but Eddie, you and I are a couple students at Santa Margarita. At lunch, I go, hey, Eddie, what are you doing after school? And you go, I don't know, Jim. And I go, hey, Eddie, want to meet in the student gathering area of the mental wellness center? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But if I said to you, hey, Eddie, you want to meet at the Center for High Performance Students? Yeah, we'd probably go, yeah, because I hear they got this going on and they got that going on, and I think we just need to change some of that thinking about, yes, there is that edge on mental health, like there's something wrong with you. God bless all of this push for this, because that stigma of that there's something wrong with you, and therefore maybe I shouldn't be around you if you got something wrong with you. And again, I'm not taking that nothing away from that movement that's so needed. But a lot of my friends that are clinical psychologists that are seeing and know our curriculum and know our programs, they're saying a lot of what we're dealing with, had they had AST's programs or other programs like ours, that they wouldn't be seeing probably 2/3 of the people they're seeing.
Well, first and foremost, I would like you guys, and I would invite you guys to go check out our website. It's hyperlinked on the upper right part on the YouTube page. It will take you directly, it expresses a little bit of our mission, vision, all the team, what we're all about, what we want to accomplish. But going off of that, about the wording, we both discussed about how, mental wiring works. How are those words and how you phrase things, why is that so crucial for someone to act and react to stuff?
Because first off, we think in 3D. As human beings, we think in 3D. Words, pictures, and emotions. So words, I always use this example. If somebody came into the room right now and said, Eddie, there's an emergency at your house, right? And you can't get a hold of anybody. And let's say you're 5 miles away from your home, and all they did is their way that they use the words and their body language and their tone of voice. And they said, Eddie, there's an emergency. You got to get home, right? And you hop in the car. You can't call anybody. You can't get a hold of anybody. How do you think you're going to drive? You're going to drive, like my mother used to say, like a bat out of hell until you got there. And all these pictures are going through your mind of what's going on at your house. There's an emergency. There's police. There's fire engine, ambulance, and there's chaos at your house. So when we use the words, and just like look at the difference in mindset of mental health, and then if you think about high performance. Well, which one? Some people don't think, we all have issues that we're dealing with. I do, you do, everybody has issues that we're dealing with. But I think that I would rather go to that high performance side and learn some of those tools instead of mental health. And I'm not slighting any of the efforts made by our mental health professionals. So I think that between what the mental health experts are doing, in the area of anxiety and depression, those are the two major ones. To prevent suicide, we see that that's up. So they are 100% so needed right now. That's not what we're dealing with. What we want to deal with is those students that are looking at, well, wait a minute, where am I going? What's this leading me to? Where am I going? I've been locked down and now I'm out there. And the emotions that these kids are dealing with right now, Eddie, what we're hearing from referees is that the lack of their skills and ability, because the lack of training has pushed them into doing something, their skills and abilities aren't there. So that becomes frustrating for them. And then they make it up with just the slightest little thing, triggers them. And on the field, I come to you and, you hit me on the football, you block me typically. And I react to that, because my emotions are still so built up. Anxiety, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, where these kids are, you and I, when we were taking a test and, the night before high school, right, we knew we had a big exam the next day or college. And we had a lot of anxiety. I had a root canal done a couple of days. I had a lot of anxiety prior to that. So there's different stages, but there isn't the anxiety that I went and locked myself in the bedroom because I just couldn't handle thinking about going to a dentist. And that is some severe anxiety. And that is caused from fear, fear of the unknown and what's going to happen to me. So with that, we do need those professionals, and we train all of our coaches that there is a fine line. And if there's any mention, or even if they think they need to talk to myself or other people in our company to say, hey, look, this student said this to me, I recognize this. We have in different parts of the country, we have set up already cognitive psychologists, clinical psychologists that, can deal in certain different areas of depression and anxiety. Those are the kind of things that we deal with.
I believe an easy way of saying or expressing what we're working on is using that example of, there's an emergency in your house. That's the trigger, right? And
Right.
I think you can either have the person who gets so stressed and so anxious that while driving home they crash because they were not paying attention to the red light or the car in front of them. And then you have the other person who, using that trigger, they know they have to get home quickly. They know they need to see their kids being safe or whatever, and they focus solely on that problem, and they solve it. So I think that's what we're doing. You take that trigger in action and you channel it into being so locked in and so focused that you can accomplish something successfully.
Well, it's the same. One of the other examples that we use too is in Southern California here, where I'm at. If one of our coaches, I watched him do this. I thought it was absolutely brilliant what he came up with. And he asked a group of soccer players, female soccer players, I think they were like 13, 14 years old. And he said, hey, this Saturday, how many of you would like to go to Disneyland? And it's on me. And a few people, half of them raised their hand. And then he said, okay, tell you what, how many would like to go to Disneyland? And when you show up, I give you $5,000 cash. Every hand went up, right? He goes, okay, now, if you want to do that, you have to be there by 8 a.m. in the morning, not 8:01. If you're not there by 8 o'clock, not only do you not get into Disneyland with me, you're not getting the $5,000 cash. Now, who wants to come? They all raised their hand, right? Said, okay. But now on the drive, you're driving up the interstate, and there's a crash on the interstate, and you're locked in. What are you going to do? And the idea that there's the long-term, deal. Some of them said, well, I would probably leave the day before. I would get out and run off the freeway safely and call an Uber and come get me. So you see the end result is so strong, their long-term vision is so strong that they come back and set small little goals to help them achieve the long term. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, of course.
But the same thing, the words and the end result is so big to them and valuable and significant that the drive and the energy and the creativity happens for them to achieve the long-term vision.
And like you said, that consistency and that drive helps you see beyond that obstacle. Because, if you see things day by day or task by task, you might get, maybe sad, depressed. You might not feel comfortable when facing these obstacles. But when there's something for you waiting in the other side of this, that's when you go through them.
There are so many different, it's such a great example. There are so many different concepts that come into play. Angela Duckworth, that wrote the book Grit, she talked about determination and persistence and passion. I mean, look at those three. You talk about the way that, the small goals setting up in significance, right? And achieving that goal that, if it's that important to you, look what lengths you will go to achieve it. And, the question you asked earlier, words. So, you get in front of a group of students and you ask the question, you ask one of them, what's your worst class? And they say chemistry. You go, okay. And their body language is like chemistry, right? And then you ask them, and you go around and you ask students that question. You get math and you get English, you get whatever. And then you come back around and you go, okay, so let me ask it differently. What's one class that you need to put more time, energy, and attention in? Oh, chemistry. Now, if that's being asked to them and not told to them, you need to spend more time and energy, right? But when you ask the question and they say, yeah, that's a class I need to put more time and energy into. Now, look at the difference between walking in, the mindset of walking in, thinking this is my worst class, versus the mindset walking in going, I need to spend more time and energy in this class and attention, focus, right? So there's a different mindset in there. And parents, and I've been just as guilty of it too, it is that at the dinner table, somebody says something or the student's in earshot and two adults are having a conversation, maybe mom and dad are having a conversation or others, and they go, yeah, that's Eddie's worst class is chemistry. I mean, I just wish he could get his act together in there, but it's such a tough class. And, all the other kids, all my kids had a tough time in chemistry. I guess we're just not good in chemistry. It's like, are you kidding me? And so it's that third party affirmation saying, Eddie, you suck in chemistry. And so you walk in and going, yep, that's just like me. And you get that terrible grade. That's just like me. Then I had a kid go, yeah, but Mr. Madrid, what's the value? I don't want to become a chemist when I get out of school. I go, so you see no value in learning chemistry? They go, nope. I go, neither do I. I'm not a chemist. I had to take it. And I go, but here's the value I saw in it. And maybe the value, do you want to go on to college? And they went, well, yeah. I said, do you think a good grade in chemistry or a bad grade in chemistry is going to help you get to college? Oh, I guess a good grade would be. But yeah, I mean, we've all said that. I'm not going to use statistics. Of course, my son Chase, he does, but it's just like a lot of us don't. I'll never use that. What would I want to learn biology for? I don't want, I'll never dissect a pig or I dissect whatever I don't want to be but we have to just start thinking differently now. And that's the area where we start thinking differently. And that's when performance starts to happen. And if we can get them thinking that way, right thinking instead of wrong thinking, then they can use it in a lot of other areas in their life and not just in school, but when they get out and they've got to deal with life, the basic challenges of life. That's when they can start using it. Yeah, I learned that a long time ago. Some old guy came into our classroom years ago and started teaching us this, and just all those little things that these kids are continuing to use. And now they're adults and we still, Darcy, my wife and I, we get Christmas cards and letters and phone calls every once in a while from some of my old students, and it's the greatest thing. It's probably the biggest pay value I get out of my work that I've done for over 30 years is that. And a lot of our coaches get the same responses now, which is great.
So before we dive, because I would like us to start diving into the vision of the future of AST, I would like to add a little bit of an example you gave me a couple of calls ago. We were talking about if someone didn't want to go with you to the park, for example. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say it's a couple, lady and a guy, and the guy doesn't want to go to the park. The lady goes and asks him, from 1 to 10, tell me how much would you dislike going to the park? Oh, a 6. And she goes, oh, I thought that would be higher. So he gets confused, and now she asks him about why was it not higher? And he starts reflecting, well, I didn't want to go, but I like to spend time with you. I like to take a break from work and stuff like that. So now you're rewiring him under that same situation, those same circumstances, and he's starting to value that a little bit more than he was before the question was asked. Now moving forward into what we talked about, where's AST right now? What we represent? Where do we want to go now?
So, the vision of AST is to graduate over 500,000 kids by year end 2024. That's huge. But people look at me when I say that and they go, wow, that's a big number. I go, yeah. But there's 44 million kids playing sports in the United States today. So that's only just a smidge, of all these kids, playing sports today. And it's not just kids playing sports, it's the general population. Like you said earlier, this is actually for everybody. And with the help of our pro athletes, and the endorsements from not only the pro athletes, but the pro coaches, college coaches, colleges that we have been working with, athletic directors. And then on the science side, we have people like Dr. Kristen Willemeyer. She is a neuroscientist, and she has signed on with us. And by the way, that's a great book that she just came out with this year called Biohack Your Brain. It's about brain health. Again, preventing mental health problems down the road. It's the right thing how to understand your brain is a muscle and how to keep it, healthy. Cognitive psychologists, research psychologists, people like Dr. Nathaniel Brandon, God rest his soul. He was, kind of like the father of self-esteem in our country. In his work, he worked with me, was a mentor to me. And, a lot of our work around self-esteem is because of Dr. Nathaniel Brandon. Dr. Martin Seligman on learned optimism. His work goes way back into in the mid-'80s on optimism and positivity, and he started the first degree program in positive psychology. Now that's really taken off. So our purpose for our vision, any great endeavor, no matter its size, it always begins with a just and noble cause. And that's our value proposition: to make a positive impact in the culture of youth sports by providing these kids with the mental skills, the life skills that will positively impact their lives, not just right now, but for the rest of their lives. Our team is kind of committed to that vision and that purpose. And purpose drives vision, and vision drives performance.
You see what I'm saying? That's why I'm so excited to be here. What about the podcast? So obviously, I'm excited that I'm going to be sharing the screen with a lot of the athletes we work with. Obviously, I'm excited to be talking with you a little bit about the whole company. But what can the audience expect from this podcast?
From this podcast, I think what you'll hear is, and it's not a promo for AST. And, I always get that. I always feel like somebody, hey, come on and tell us how great we are. No. It's the concepts of AST, that, and they're not AST's concepts by no means, but, to talk to a pro athlete, or a collegiate athlete, for a young kid to hear, the setbacks and, things that have happened to these kids along the way. And then when they leave their home and they go to college, and now they got a whole new coach and what it means, and, what they actually went through, and to hear that in their life experiences, and to be able to ask them questions about a particular concept and how that applied to their life and how it made a difference in their life, to getting the Dr. Kristen Willemeyers on, to getting some of the cognitive psychologists on, to these research psychologists, and finding out what's really going on, in research on how the brain is connected to performance. So to be able to hear some of that, I think that's pretty exciting. It's not just me, but Eddie's going to be carrying us through this. And every once in a while, I'll be on there with Eddie too, and we'll be talking about different, subjects, and some current, current affairs that are happening in sports, like John Rahm, guy gets tested for COVID. He's leading the pack by 6 strokes. And then on a Saturday, he's just crushing it. He's in what we call flow, and he's ready to rock the next day. And as he's walking off the course, and you remember that, and he gets told he's got COVID and he's got to go into quarantine for 2 weeks, comes back and just killed it at, down there at La Jolla, last week, and wins the championship. That's resilience, baby. That is resilience. And even what he came out with in his statement that he came out with, those are the stories. And then to be able to talk to John Rahm, and we'll get to the John Rahms, we'll get to those pros and find out and ask the questions. I'm excited about the podcast.
Okay, so that's the AST, the company's version of why this podcast is going to be exciting, and I fully agree. But let me talk about my personal side of this.
Absolutely.
The ones The ones that know me know that I'm really passionate about getting the support and the content everywhere. And this is exactly why I believe this podcast is going to be a game changer. Even though we are going to be graduating a lot of students and we're focusing on all over the states, spreading the word, I know we can't reach every single person. But by creating this free content that's going to be able to be accessed by people from all around the world. And like you mentioned, we'll see me and you talking with pro athletes, people who have been there, done that. You know, they're just not talking the talk, but they have walked the walk. I think it's pretty special for a kid in Mexico like me that maybe didn't have an access to an AST or a company like that can come to my school and support me. But I can just click on a computer, you know, move something in YouTube on my phone and be able to watch that. Maybe a 10-second clip can change your perspective of a lot of things. And I'm really looking forward to that.
So, okay, Eddie, and that's awesome. And you're absolutely right. A friend of mine years ago had these sound stages up in Burbank. And man, we'd walk in there and Paul McCartney had a studio in there, and I watched different performers all the time. Michael Jackson, in the movie This Is It, just before he passed away, he rehearsed there. I got to see him. I got to see Crosby, Stills and Nash. I got to see all these. And so he put video cameras in each one of the rehearsal studios and got permission. And it was like a look inside of how they rehearsed. It was awesome. That's the same thing with this podcast. This is the same thing. So Eddie, awesome. I love it. But now tell us a little bit about Eddie.
All right. Well, a little bit about me. I'm a very passionate individual. I am creator of 2% Football Camp. I'm currently working with different companies on the marketing side of things. The sports world is my world, as you can tell. And what can I say?
Where are you going to college?
Right. I'm a student at UNL. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work with some great people, meet some great mentors like yourself, Jim. And I don't think this podcast is going to be about myself. Obviously, some of you might not know me. I am looking forward to spend time with you guys virtually, but I am way more excited for what I can bring you guys as a product.
Yeah, and Eddie and I hit it off because we have his father is a friend of mine, and he needed to interview somebody for his podcast, and then from there, Eddie's opened up, and it just to have somebody with his energy and his spirit and his knowledge of sports. And then on the technology side and everything else, he's relentless with me, and I love that. It's great. So it's great to have him and as a host of the show and co-host of the show with me. So thank you, Eddie. Looking forward to doing this with you.
Thank you, Jim, and I'm pleased to be here. For all of you guys, like I said, I'm going to be linking the website, our social media. We're going to be bombarding you guys everywhere, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. Jim, thank you very much for being our first guest.
Just remember, it's all mental.
Jim Madrid, I'm Eduardo Sicilia, and this was Advanced Sports Technology Official Podcast.